boys, today we're doing decimal fractions. I think some people hear the word fractions and they freak out and think that the maths is really a lot harder than it is. Remember, a decimal fraction is just a number that has a number after the wholes. So for example, 12 is a whole number. If we put this magic decimal point here, then write a number afterwards, we've got a decimal fraction. This place value next to our ones is called the tenths. And if there was another number next to our tenths, that would be hundredths. Make sure you're not getting that confused between tens and hundreds because they're very, very different. So this is an example of a decimal fraction. That's it. Let's look at this cute little colored in squares that we've got down here. You often see it saying something along the lines of one large square is representative of one whole. So what that means is this square here is one whole number that's been sliced and diced into 100 tiny pieces. That's right, there are 100 little squares here. If you go and count, you can see that there are 10 in one column. So each of these little skinny columns is 10 hundredths, or you can call it 1/10. So that makes it easier when you're trying to count up and see how much is actually highlighted. Let's figure out what decimal fraction is represented in these two cute little squares then. We can see straight away that this whole box is colored in, so that is one whole. Sometimes it's referred to as 1 as well, or if it's more than one, it might be 2 ones, etc. And over here we can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skinny little columns are colored in, so we know that that is 5/10ths. And we can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiny little boxes colored in, so that is 5/100ths. So just doing the quick maths here, I can see that because I've got 5/10ths and 5/100ths, that means that there are 55 little squares colored in on this one whole here. Now comes the tricky part, which is combining all of this into something that resembles a decimal fraction. And it's pretty hard. You have to pull it all together and go like this. We put our whole numbers on this side of our decimal point. We put our decimal point, and then we write in the tenths, followed by the hundredths. 1.55. That's pretty much it. The next way they try to trick you is they say, well, that's what it is as a decimal fraction. Write it in words. And it's pretty easy. You just write down 1/55. You don't need to write one wholes, you don't need to write one ones, you can just write the whole numbers and then follow it with your hundredths. Just be careful because you might get tricky ones that say things like this. Anytime there's a 0 in a decimal point, people tend to freak out as well. But this one, if I was writing it in words, would just be 3 and 5. And because I know the tenths has got nothing in it, the 5's in the hundredths, so it's 5/100ths. Let's keep doing them. I love them. Even if you've got a number like this, you need to work out what that's trying to say. You can write it two ways. Because you can see that the 1 is in the tenths, you might write down, well, that number is 1/10. But because they've drawn in the 0 for you here, that's sort of giving you a clue that they want the answer in this place value, which is the hundredths. So you could write down 10 hundredths. Both answers are technically correct, but you just got to go by what they're giving you. That's as simple as decimal fractions get, really. You need to be able to write them in words, you need to be able to write them in numbers, you need to be able to color in nice little squares to show us what they look like.